សូមអញ្ជើញអង្គុយចុះ please sit down
ជំនុំព្រះតឡតបង
The President, the court is in session now.
មន្ត្រីតុលាការអញ្ជើញសាក្សី
The court official, could you please bring Mr. Francois Bizot into the courtroom? Next, in our proceedings, we're going to hear the testimony of Mr. Francois Bizot, to be followed from what he already testified yesterday. So now the chamber would like to ask the judges of the trial chamber whether they would like to ask any questions to the witness. Since there is no questions from our judges, and I have a question on my own, Mr. Francois Bizot, during the time when you were detained at M13 from the October to the 25th of December 1971, did you notice that how many staff, including the cadres and guards, in that office at that time?
Francois Bizot. Your Honor, I tried to later on to figure this out, but I wasn't successful in doing so. There was Duch, his deputy, and one or two younger Khmers, I believe, who were in charge. Of course, with a lower level of responsibility, the two younger ones. The guards, or in any case, those who were assigned to follow me to follow my eventual, when I was walking around, there could have been 3 or maybe 2 others for the other prisoners. Maybe there were 5 or 6 guards in total, with a few rotations, but those were rare. So, let's say about 10 people in total, maybe. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure of this figure.
The President, next, the Chamber would like to give the floor to the co-prosecutors to be able to put some questions to the witness if you would wish to do so. The floor is yours. The co-prosecutor, Mr. Francois Bizot, could you please clarify regarding the detainees who came with a child, so where were they taken to?
François Bizot. I do not know where the father of the little girl was brought to. I have the feeling, however, that he was brought to his death. And the little girl stayed in the camp. And as I said to you yesterday, she was taken in by the young guards, and she quite quickly participated in the self-criticism sessions, which also came with songs. And I remember seeing her not really answering the questions, but at least clapping her hands and singing along these revolutionary songs that were sung before and after each one's self-criticism confession. I remember after about 2 weeks, she became a little girl who had completely joined the cause in a certain way, you could say. She completely followed the steps of the guards, we could say. And then, I don't remember exactly, however, but did she stay in the camp, or was I released before she left? That I cannot really remember. I cannot give you any more details on that. I do not remember.
Question, how old was that little girl?
9 ans.
François Bizot, 9 years old, because I had asked her for her age. She was 9 years old.
Another question, please. Could you please clarify again, when you were released from 13, were Sok and Lai, your assistants, released at that time also?
François Bizot. My 2 assistants, my 2 Khmer companions were not released. They were, Duch told me, released, but they had to stay on site. That is to say that they were no longer shackled, and that they could participate in, or that they were going to participate in the work at the camp. In any case, they would remain free within the camp, we could say, in relation to. They would remain free in this camp in relation to the zones that were still under government control, this camp being considered as a free zone. The explanation to this, because I tried to, in vain, To make this inconsistency clear, I consider that I was innocent, and on the other hand, and that we could not consider that my two companions would also not be free, that I could not understand. And they answered me that they were Khmer and I was a foreigner. So therefore my place was not in the camp. However, they would be released in Khmer Rouge-controlled territory, which was called the Liberated Zone. I know, unfortunately, that that's not how things went, however, and that they were executed.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Co-Prosecutor Robert Petit. Thank you, Mr. Bizot. Thank you, Your Honors. A few questions. First of all, you spoke to us about, a few times, in fact you said this, about the deputy who you thought was the deputy of the accused, who was the first person in the camp with whom you had contact, the first cadre in the camp with whom you had contact, and it was a rather unpleasant meeting, you said. Were you able back then, or since, with relative certainty to establish the identity of this deputy, the deputy of the accused? What was his name? François Bizot. I have absolutely no memory of this. I don't remember his name. However, I knew it at one time, but I don't remember it now. I saw several times this cadre, who was indeed a rather brutal person, and who was completely insensitive to others. And in a particularly remarkable way, I must say. However, not so long ago, having learned that, but these are not, this is additional information that I gathered, so it's not directly related to my memories of M13 per se. This is additional information that came from recent information. Well, one of the deputies of Duch at S21, if I may refer to S21, was a certain Mom Mai. I think it was Mumbai, yes. And I thought that maybe, therefore, that it was Mumbai at M13 who was his deputy as well. But at the same time, the descriptions of this deputy, this henchman, yeah, at S21, depict him as being somebody who was particularly tall and albino, or in any case was had very clear skin, which did not correspond at all to the physical aspect that I remember from the deputy at M13. So I cannot be sure that it was the same person. Co-Prosecutor Robert Petit, thank you. And on the other hand, you also said yesterday in your statement that where you were detained, or retained, we may say even, you could observe, or at least once you were able to do so, the accused
interrogating a prisoner, the father of the little girl in question. After having received a file from the guard who was accompanying the detainee to the accused. And as far as I understood from your statement, that this took place, therefore, in an open space which was visible to everyone. So, therefore, were you able to observe other situations of this kind, where the accused was working in, we could say, at interrogating other prisoners? And did you see any other exchanges of files related to these interrogations? François Bizot, in order to be a witness of this, it was necessary it could not rain. Duch would set up his table. It was a small table, a small mobile table outside under the porch of the guard's hut. And I saw the interior of this hut only once. And then there were hammocks inside. So the guards would sleep in hammocks. And when it was not raining, therefore I could see Duch working behind this table, the accused working behind this table. However, this was not visible to everybody, being that because if this barrack hut was next to the other huts, but however the prisoners could not see easily the guards moving around their huts, because the fullest hut was on the right-hand side of the guards' hut, and the prisoners were necessarily and always lying down. So the hut that was facing the prisoner's hut that I've just mentioned could see probably what was happening around the hut reserved for the guards. However, it was not the one that was the most where the most prisoners were housed. And in any case, Duch, since it rained often when I was in the camp, most of the time, Duch was inside. And therefore, to answer your question, Your Honor, the only memory that I have of this, is that I saw somebody come in and out practically immediately. Most times, I would see people go in, and I did not see them come out. And if they came out, it was after a long time. He came in and he came out immediately, practically. I also saw soldiers arrive one evening and leave the next day. A big group of soldiers who were not wearing any boots. And this stirred up the camp because there was the number of guards was not sufficient to face an escape attempt by the soldiers. They were. Thank you, says co-prosecutor Robert Petit. Now, concerning the other part of my question, did you have the opportunity to see any other exchanges of documents or files, except for what concerns you directly, in the context of these interrogations? François Bizot. I do not remember this. Co-prosecutor Robert Petit, thank you. Now, maybe maybe this was a result of a translation problem, but yesterday you said to us in a very eloquent way
the last meal before your release, and in particular the conversation that you had with the accused, in which he confessed to you beaten prisoners to make them confess. You, however, and once again, I will ask for your indulgence if this was not correctly translated, but you seem to say that Duch said to you at the same time that this work would absolutely revolt him, was repulsive to him, would make him puke, I would actually say. And I read your book with attention, and I reread your book, I must say, and I reread your written records of your interview, and I noted nowhere that at any given moment, and even less during this meal, that the accused, during these 3 months, expressed to you of remorse or any kind of anxiety in relation to this work, we could say. So, therefore, could you clarify if indeed you remember today, or if you can still, this apparent remorse that he might have expressed to you during this dinner, or if this was just maybe some kind of form of hope that you might have, or some kind of memory, but that is a memory that you have now, but that might not correspond to the reality. François Bizot. Yes, Your Honor, I am indeed confused concerning this particular point. Testifying objectively about what happened is something. For about what I saw, and relating writing this down is something else. If the exactness of the events and of the facts that happened there and that I relate in my book does not go beyond my memories, and somebody would have said, might have said some things differently and seen things. I did not see everything. That's true. And even more so, and I did not try to call upon my conscious memory in a certain way to relate 30 years later of what happened, because it was not expected for me to come out of there alive. So, as I said to you in this book, I'm speaking about a feeling, and giving an objective statement on what happened during my 3 months there 30 years later is something that is another story that requires much more from me, requires much more verbal caution, I would say. So I must say that in order to answer your question, I did not hear Duch express any remorse. No, that is true. I believe, remembering I was going to say the extreme unpleasant, Duch's extreme embarrassment when he told me that he would beat prisoners, or that had happened. And if he had not said that to me, I would not have imagined that. But having said that to me, I retain that he had a lot of discomfort. The words that he was using to express this, I cannot confirm them. That's true. I only remember that it was in some kind of spontaneous in a spontaneous, sincere moment, and that he considered that this was something that he had to do, and he had to force himself to do it. He had to. He had to make this into some form of duty. If the word yesterday was to say that this made him puke, well, I don't remember in fact what I said yesterday, but I think that's maybe not the word. I don't think that that's the word that he actually used. No. You agree with me, therefore, co-prosecutor Robert Petit, that having a duty does not necessarily mean forcing yourself to accomplish this duty. And you can correct me, of course, if I'm mistaken, but you said to me that at no moment during your detention the accused expressed remorse to you, and that during this conversation that you relate in your book and in your written record of the interview, it's true that 30 years later we understand, all of us, of course, that your statement is a mirror of these circumstances. But this obligation to perform this kind of work, you do not relate it in your statement or in your interview. So, therefore, would it be better to say that this was more of an impression than something that you actually saw yourself? Wouldn't that be more correct? François Bizot. He said to me that it was something that he disliked, and I'm afraid of having written something and having therefore emptied my memory in doing so. I'm afraid of not being able to recall the actual memory I had when I wrote this book, and maybe my memory was emptied in a certain way when I wrote this book, and I'm afraid also to repeat what I wrote. But however, I think I remember that Duch expressed the fact that he was doing this job as an obligation without pleasure because the prisoners would not say the truth on their own. And to be clear, this conversation happens when you were with other cadres, or was it you just with Duch?
No,
says the witness. This was on the eve of my release, not on the 24th, but on the 25th of December. And this slight delay in my actual physical release left this kind of empty space, empty time. And during that empty time in the evening, there was Duch, and I was there, and I came close to the fire where he was sitting, or he came close to the fire where I was sitting, and there was only one other person, a young guard, who came up at one point, and he sang a revolutionary song at that point. Thank you, says Robert Petit. Robert Petit, at the stage and yesterday you have stated that you yourself had not been the victim of physical torture. Thank heavens. But what about psychological torture? And more to the point, in your book, you mention two incidents, two occurrences. In one of these, the accused led you into believing that in the end you had been unmasked, you had been found guilty, and consequently would have to bear the consequences of this. And this incident naturally gave rise to a reaction in your mind, and seeing that reaction, Duch says, "No, I was just joking, haha." Can you confirm to me whether this incident really did happen in the way in which I have described it, or please correct the description and confirm whether this event did happen? The witness: I can confirm quite unambiguously, and the accused is also there and can also remember. It can be difficult to remember exactly what terms were used at the time. It can be difficult to recall terms used at the time by him and or by me. However, that particular interlude, which happened when he came back from one of his weekly trips out of the camp, that interlude is very clearly etched in my memory, and so I can confirm that there was this kind of joke, or that the fact and the finality, the goal, the purpose of my detention was used by him in jest when he said that I had been unmasked. And I think that was the first time that Duch spoke to me in French. My reaction was that much more intense, that I had known from the day before that he would be spending the following day discussing a number of matters with his superiors, and that my own case would be on the agenda of those discussions. I had been in the camp for 3 months, and I figured that this state of affairs could not last very much longer. So this simulation, this mock announcement of an unmasking of me with the charges against me, I broke down and I fell to my knees. And that is the point when he lifted me up and he told me that it had all been in jest. Co-prosecutor, could you tell us about another similar occurrence? In this case, the accused allegedly made use of your relationship with your colleague and friend, Son. And made you believe that there would be certain consequences, and thereafter said that no, denied this, and that this had only been in jest. François Bizot. Prosecutor, are you referring to what happened once we had, my 2 companions had been unchained and I was also free to move about the camp? This may have happened at the moment when Duch asked a young guard to unchain Lai and Son. So are you referring to the remark by Duch to Son saying, if I remember correctly, I should have reread my book before coming here, because I can't remember what I wrote. But there were occurrences when Duch would joke, saying to Son, that I was very close to Lai. I had known Lai for 5 years. We were all the time together. We were working together. Son was an employee at the Angkor Conservation and had been there, I think, for only 6 months. He was a newlywed. I had far less of an acquaintance with him. So most of the direct communication was between me and Lai, who also had deeper experience in terms of professional work. So Son was told that, okay, Bizo is going to leave, and he has a choice to, he can choose either Son or Lai. But Bizo thought Lai would be released and Son would stay here. And Lai will then be released and go away with Bizo. So, of course, Son remained quite quiet. And then he said, do you believe me? Do you think this is possible? And it was terribly painful to me to hear Son say, yes, I think this is possible. And Duch said, so at last, here is somebody who believes me. And then he laughed. Son was unchained, as well as Lai at the same time. Thank you, says the co-prosecutor. No further questions on my part.
The President, next, the Chamber would like to give the opportunity to the civil parties to put questions to the witness. First, I would like to invite civil party lawyer